On. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mad's Monday Morning Podcast, airing each and every Monday night besides last week. Because I scheduled an episode with someone, we didn't record it. I was going to redo that episode with said Twitter guest. We didn't record it this weekend either. So, here I am doing this. I have the new, no sponsor, but I have the new Pink Velvet iced coffee from Dunkin' with me. Pink Velvet Macchiato, the latest new holiday-themed consumer product. Right here. Alongside me. But I wanted to make a video about the recent drama scandal thing that happened to me. I finally made it. I got into a big online drama cancel scandal debacle. I did it. Look at me, Mom. I did it. Shoe on Head took me out of context and posted about it. It got hundreds of quote tweets. I did it. I successfully activated the social outrage machine. That's part of the broader media big tech apparatus. Let's call it. I did it. I got them on my case. And honestly, if I looked at it right now, there would probably still be people tweeting about and quote tweeting my shit. But I did like shortly after posting that, I muted the conversation because I quickly realized the fact that no one was really there to have a good faith discussion with me. No one was really there to engage in a honest and genuine way with what I was trying to say. They were there to release their adrenaline and get angry at something and point the moralistic finger at the bad one and say, "You are bad. I am good and you are bad. My judgment of you is bad, consecrates my identity as being good, and you're not on the team. You're not in the club." And if you don't know what happened, if you don't follow me on Twitter, if you live under a rock, I will tell you the take that got so viciously pounced upon by the social outrage machine. And of course that was the fact that I saw someone tweet one of these big woke leftist, quote unquote leftist accounts tweeted something about how ADHD will still exist under communism. And so I naturally, me reading that, if you know anything about my theoretical perspectives and my belief system, which I will elaborate on more during this podcast, you might be able to tell that when reading that, I would have a lot to say about that. But one thing that just immediately jumped out in my mind when I read that was the fact that I remember from a podcast that I listened to, not unlike the one that you're consuming right now, listening to this, someone talking about how the term ADHD, the literal like term and the associated identity, which is what I'm talking about in my response to this tweet, brief as it was, and as unwittingly controversial as it was that the term ADHD, the territory, was invented by the literal company that advertises the drug, or the drugs that are used to treat ADHD symptoms. It wasn't coined by the medical professionals. It was literally coined by corporations. I wasn't able to find the specific info, but it's kind of irrelevant because that wasn't the point, the broader, bigger point beneath what I said. And what I said was that ADHD was literally invented by advertising corporations, not knowing that people would take this to mean that I was saying that the experience and symptoms that we interpret as ADHD aren't real, because that's not what I was saying at all. That's ridiculous to claim. That's literally like insane to say. So I don't understand why people were so ready to take it that way, because there literally wasn't an inkling in my mind that people would take it that way. Because I know my followers, even though obviously way more people ended up stumbling across this tweet than the people who follow my Twitter account. And I know that they know my perspectives about mental illness and so on. Like, I know that they know that. So I didn't anticipate that people would take this in an ableist, discriminatory way, but they did. And they're literally reading into my tweet the intention to be offensive, when I didn't even have an inkling in my mind that people would take it in that way. I had no clue, no idea that would happen. Zero anticipation for that, because that's not even a thought that I would have. Like, in the way that I think about things, the invalidation of other people's lived experiences is not part of it. Like, I don't think that way. So it's insane that you have these people on Twitter who are literally telling me, this is what you meant when you said this. As if they know that. As if they can tell that. This eye of moral judgment, it claims complete authority over you. It acts like it knows what's in your head. It's totally a manifestation of the worst of our society. These moralistic cliques of online social outrage machines. It's totally a manifestation of like the worst punitive instincts that our society implants into us. But these people wouldn't even know that. These people wouldn't even have the tools to be able to analyze the situation to that extent. They have no analysis. And it got clearer and clearer to me as the day went on that that's what was happening. It was a moral outrage thing. It wasn't like I said earlier, like it wasn't like a good faith engagement in ideas, and it wasn't a theoretical argument either. It was a moral outrage, emotional reaction. and I would say reactionary reaction. But let's get more into like clarification, because I do feel the need to genuinely clarify my position and what I think about this topic. Partly because I actually do think that it's important to analyze these things, and like I have been saying on the show, post-structuralism is important today, I think. And moralism is not good today. My straw is stuck in my cup. What the hell? Why? What? I should just like take the cap off of this. This is insane. Hold on a second. All right. So what was I saying? Because I don't want to start with what I wasn't saying, because like I feel like I should put forward my positive claims first. Because I feel like if I just say a bunch of things that I wasn't saying, then it's like you still don't know what I was saying. So you still would have room to like accuse me of saying something that I wasn't saying. So what was I saying there? What I was saying was that, again, the identity, the territorialized, artificially constructed identity of ADHD, and the medical category, the diagnosis themselves, are inventions. That's what I was saying. I was saying that the diagnostic category and the associated internalized identity that people get when they receive the diagnosis are constructions. They are constructions. They are not essential realities. And honestly, to respond more to the tweet that my tweet was in response to, I think if your take starts with X, Y, or Z will still exist under communism, then you don't have a broad enough understanding of what that means. You don't have a broad enough understanding of what capitalism is or what communism is. At least in my opinion. According to my, you don't, basically what I'm saying is you don't have as broad of a lens as I do on that question. Because what I consider like capitalism to be in like the broadest sense is it's not just a mode of production. It's not just an ideology. It's not just a thing that you can either agree with or disagree with, or believe in or not believe in. And it's not just a material relation. It's not just either one of those. It's both of those things, and in a more broad sense, it's also the current stage of society and the current global order of things, globally. So in a historical sense, it's the current stage of history. It's the current stage of society. It's the current stage in the development of human civilization is capitalism. So in that sense, like the terms society and capitalism are kind of interchangeable for me. When I talk about society, I'm kind of talking about capitalist society, obviously, because I'm talking about society as we know it, as we live in it today. And the society we live in today is capitalist. So I'm talking about capitalism when I talk about society, and when I talk about capitalism, I'm talking about society as well. Because it's not just an ideology, it's not just a material mode of production, it's both and more. And ultimately, I do have a certain form of materialism as a philosophical outlook on the world. And what does that mean? What that means is what's in our minds, what we think, what are the terms we think in, even our ideology, our ideologies, even our mental states, our mental emotional states, our social world, our social landscapes are shaped by material reality and material realities and material conditions. So what does that mean? That means that in the most radical sense, in the broadest sense of materialism, what's in your mind, your mental state, your mental emotional state is a reflection, a symptom of the way society is. And what you think is shaped by what happens to you. Not only that, but the ways we think, the terms we think in, the very values that we think we believe in, and that we do genuinely believe in, and the ways that we think the world works are also influenced by the world around us. And I think that's kind of intuitive on some level. At least to me, when I first discovered those concepts, it just makes sense. And so I don't think that we can separate a mental condition from the conditions of society. I don't think we can. I think that mental conditions are symptoms of the conditions of society. More often than not, and are exacerbated by it, affected by it in various different ways for various different people who have the same conditions, because they have different material conditions in their lives as well. These things are very variable and conditional. It's about analyzing the interactions between them. It's dialectical. So it's very intuitive what I'm talking about. And I also want to respond to some of the arguments that people were offering, because there was a little bit of that. Bad faith as it might have been, there were people who were actually making an effort to argue with my position, even if they didn't understand it. So I will respond to those arguments. But I want to go more into detail here because I really want to make my position clear to everyone so that everyone knows that I'm not trying to invalidate your lived experiences. I'm trying to analyze them. I'm trying to come up with a model for explaining them. In a way that isn't this simplistic, idealist, fucking, you just have a mental disorder sense. Because I disagree with that. Why? Because those things are constructed. All a mental disorder is a list of behaviors and thought patterns that the system territorialized into a diagnosis and a diagnostic identity for people to then internalize into themselves. And what effect does that have on a lot of people who have mental health conditions? It makes them think that they're fundamentally flawed. It literally makes them think that they're inherently less than others. What do you think the category of disabled really means? They're saying that you're less than other people. You're unable. The category of ability, the category of neurotypical, is an exclusionary category. It only exists, neurotypical as a category only exists because there are people who don't fit into it. And those people get categorized as divergent. And there are a lot of people, even people who might disagree with my analysis in some ways, and who are neurodivergent, who don't even think that there's anybody who really fulfills the category of neurotypical. Because what does that even mean, really? Other than an exclusionary category. And I'm sorry, but if you don't think that one's mental condition is, in part at least, a result of their material conditions, then you're not a materialist. Like, you just aren't. And if you don't think that capitalism influences and basically can be explained as the material conditions of our society, then you're not a socialist either. Like, if you disagree with my points here, you either have to agree with one of the two of those statements. And if you agree with the first one, you're not a materialist. And if you agree with the second one, you're not a socialist. And what else about capitalism and communism? Capitalism also produces what we know currently to be human subjectivity. Human subjectivity, like, and the phenomenology that goes alongside of it, aka our experiences in the social realm, the socio-cultural realm of things, is that flows out of capitalism. So under communism, human beings, as we understand them, will/would be different. Human subjectivity will/would change. We won't be the same people under a different world system. Under a new world order, we will not be the same fucking people. We won't be the same as people. I think I'm talking to Socialism Done Left in a couple of days, and one point that I want to discuss with him is the point that God, I'm losing my... What was I talking about? Oh yes, the point that I don't believe, it seems like he believes that the way that people are produces the way that society is, which is a very idealist, kind of antithetical to socialism position to have. And of course, I think that really what it is more is the way that we are as people and the way we understand ourselves as people, the way we think about the concept of human nature, is heavily influenced by the way society is, not the other way around. Even though it might be a feedback loop, it might feed into it on some levels, because there are individual people who have the belief system and value system and human subjectivity of capitalism. They are very much capitalists in that sense, who then reinforce it. That does happen. At the end of the day, no individual has control to define what society is. on the level that they would then be able to define themselves. You know what I mean? Like, I really want to go into that, because when I listened to him talk to Zoomer Nation, it really seemed like he was just, like, taking this capitalist realist lane and deciding that if, like, basically saying that the reason why we don't have a charitable society or a communal society is because people aren't charitable and communal, when what I would say to that is the reason why you look at your graphs and see that people aren't charitable and communal is because we live in a society that doesn't value those things and discourages those values. Why do you think these incentive structures exist? He was talking about incentive structures. Why does he think they exist? What effects does he think that they have? He doesn't have a good analysis of these things because the guy only has graphs. He can only look at data. There's no theoretical analysis to add to the data and decide what the data means, what the data can actually tell us. So stay tuned for that conversation, because I think that's going to be very interesting. But I want to go back to the ADHD thing. Because I do think there's sort of two layers to my position here. I do think that capitalism exacerbates the symptoms of ADHD in the broadest sense of the term capitalism. And I also think so therefore these symptoms might be, like, it's likely that they might be lessened under a communist society where you're not expected to be productive for some capitalist, and you're not being constantly bombarded with all this advertising and stupid entertainment that shortens your attention span and is literally designed to make you stupid. Like, you know what I mean? And these social media apparatuses that literally fuck up your dopamine receptors and the dopamine in your brain. You know? People seem to think that we just have different kinds of brains that we're just born with, and society doesn't affect your brain structure. I think society affects your fucking brain structure, because what we interpret as mental conditions, as feelings, and so on, can all be reduced to brain structure and neurochemistry. All of them. Not just mental illnesses, quote unquote. All of them can be. The trick is determining and analyzing where those chemical reactions come from phenomenologically, on the level of the world, on the sociocultural level. What do you experience that then changes your brain structure to then change your experience? You see what I mean? It's not just fucking brain chemistry. You can't be a physicalist and fucking reduce everything to physical brain chemistry and matter. That doesn't help you at all. That makes you stuck. That puts you in a bad place of analysis, first of all, where you have no choice but to think of yourself as inherently flawed. But I don't believe in inherent flaw. Why? Because a flaw is a relational position. It's not some objective thing. Because you might have a brain chemistry or a mental condition, a mental emotional condition that makes you more dysfunctional for capitalism, then you're probably going to get branded mentally ill. And you shouldn't, my perspective is you shouldn't take this to mean that you're fundamentally dysfunctional. Because what do you mean by function? And like all these people in my mentions talking about how, like, oh, oh, can't even, it makes me impossible to function, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, okay, but you haven't even begun to question what you mean by function and why you even value functioning in the first place. Like, there's no depth of analysis in these people's like worldviews, but yet they call themselves leftists. Like, it's really frustrating to me to deal with. So there's that. There's the fact that I think that a different society, a communist society, would not produce such exacerbated attention deficit effects. And I also think that a communist society would treat people who do have what we interpret to be ADHD on the level of experience, which again, I was never saying doesn't exist. Of course that exists. I experience symptoms of ADHD myself from time to time. Of course it exists. I don't think a communist society would treat people who experience that the same as our society does. And I would sure fucking hope it wouldn't. Because all these institutions, these carceral institutions of the mental hospital and the hospital overall, and psychiatry, etc., will have to be changed under a communist society. Not just so that they aren't for profit, but so that they aren't punitive and carceral and idealist as well. Like, I would want a mental health system that, instead of enforcing a false ideal of normality onto people and defining them out of it categorically, which leads to them internalizing an identity as inherent flaw, I would want a system that would actually go out and fix what's in the society, in the material reality, so that the symptom would cease to happen. I would want a system of dealing with mental health problems that understands that they come from the outside world and not some internal defect. Because again, what this system interprets to be internal defects, I think, are just consequences of the way the world is. It's a different perspective on it. It's a different perspective on the whole issue, which that's my forte. I'm into doing that. I really like that. Because I take this shit seriously. I take this shit for real. This is what I really think. I'm not a grifter. I'm genuinely here, good faith engaging, explaining my thoughts to you. And here's the other part. There were literally people calling me the R slur, like RETARD, calling me that, as other people call me ableist in this moral mob against me. Like, there were literally people, and I saw this more than once, literally people using ableist slurs, ableist language, which I don't use anymore. I'm actually trying really hard to cut that kind of language out of my fucking vocabulary. But there were literally people using that language against me. as this mob was also calling me the ableist one. People calling me a neurotypical. People taking me to be some kind of fucking typical, normal-minded person. Which, like, it's pretty obvious that I'm not. And I've literally talked about my mental health struggles, my own mental health struggles, on the internet many, many times. But these people are still calling me a neurotypical for saying that. And it's really like, those were two things that happened in that like whole debacle that I just find to be like really just, that honestly is like reprehensible, because it's like, you're being hypocritical, first of all, calling me these words that are literally ableist when what I said isn't even ableist, because you read that intention into what I said. And assuming my mental state just to dunk on me, when in reality, I've dealt with a lot of my own mental health struggles. I've been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and an undefined mood disorder, because I didn't fulfill the entire category of bipolar, but I fulfilled enough that they called it a disorder. So yeah, I'm not by any means some kind of fucking neurotypical, normie ass conservative who wants to block people off from getting their ADHD medications. I saw that take as well. People taking it as I'm trying to say that their experience doesn't exist so that they don't get medicated, when that's not my problem with medication. And I'm the last person who would ever stop anybody from doing drugs. Like, I don't care. Take your drugs. I don't care. I'm not trying to stop people from getting their fucking meds. Like, that's not my fucking agenda. If you think that medication is going to help you, and if medication does help you, like in your experience in your life as you understand it, then my only problem with that is that might stifle any kind of disruptive potential that your condition might have had before for capitalism. Otherwise, fine, go ahead. I don't care. I want people to have a good experience in their short, limited lives. Like, I don't give a shit. Do what you want to do that you think will improve your living conditions. I don't care. So I'm definitely not saying that. I'm definitely not saying that ADHD shouldn't be treated. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, overall, the way that our current society treats mental illness is flawed on the philosophical, theoretical level, and it ultimately serves to reinforce that system. And I also think that all of the disorder categories are inventions, because they are inventions. And people were saying, oh, that's just how language and science works. It's like, okay, yeah. So you agree with me then that language and science are oftentimes used as tools by a given society to reinforce and reify that society. Right? Like, it's just very frustrating, because, like, and I think all of those things really, this whole debacle really exposes the abusive nature of the online social outrage machine that I keep talking about throughout this episode. They read intention into you that you don't have. They demonize you and essentialize you as a bigoted person who's inherently evil. They attack you hypocritically, according to their own terms. They break their own rules to attack you in a contradictory way. They contradict themselves. And the mob kind of doesn't, it never stops. It's this constant, consistent battering socially onto you, onto your mind, that just that can stick with people. Like, imagine that I was a more sensitive person reading all those comments. Like, imagine that. Like, reading people literally calling me the R word. Like, what do you think that's going to do to someone at the end of the day? Especially when what I said was not the bigoted thing that everyone thought that I was saying. And intention does matter. It's not just, I'm not a pure ass consequentialist. I think intention matters. Because I didn't even read that, like, I didn't even read that effect could be had, first of all. And the only reason people interpreted me that way is again, that's just another societal consequence. Like, it's just, I think you kind of get what I hope you all sort of understand what I'm trying to say there. But I do partly kind of understand why that reaction occurred. And part of it is literally because I kind of was attacking people's identities. I was attacking that internalized, constructed identity of the disorder. And when you attack an identity like that, you're bound to get an emotional response. And so that's what happened. But I wasn't, again, what was I not saying? What I was not saying was that the experience of having ADHD symptoms doesn't exist. That is definitely not what I was fucking saying. At all. That would be one of the most stupid things I've ever heard in my life. And I've heard very, very few people in life say something like that. It's not a very common perspective anymore. But again, what is this? Let's step back, because I think I've really made my points about mental health, in internalized identities, and so on. But let's kind of analyze what's happening with the Twitter mobs, because that's interesting to look at as well. What's really like happening there is that you have a lot of people who are traumatized by people who have said terrible shit, total bullshit, like your condition doesn't exist, your symptom, the way you feel, the way you experience reality is illegitimate. And then having a trauma response to my statement, hearing that in what I said, even though that's not what I was saying, and then attacking me accordingly. And so what that really is Twitter and the overall like online tech space, that arm of capitalism, taking advantage of people's traumas and turning them into a moralistic cancel mob who who's there to divide the proletariat, to divide the working class. Fundamentally, what that social interaction is a neoliberal manipulation of people's emotions, and it's not good. That's why I try my hardest to stay away from that entire thing. Even though I do call people out, I do post and I disagree with people and I post my disagreements. I try my hardest to not do that thing and not do the moralistic cancel culture, whatever you want to call it, the hate mob, the social outrage machine. I try my hardest to not participate in those discourses because ultimately it serves capitalism. Ultimately, that's all you're doing. In addition to serving capitalism, all you're doing by calling me out is shutting me out of your little social clique, which isn't a revolutionary movement. It's literally just a social clique of people who have the same opinions, more or less. And then whenever there's divergence, you get cut out and they pounce on you like a bunch of white blood cells, trying to like eradicate the disease. And reinforcing the boundary that encloses your territorialized identity, which at the end of the day also serves capitalism. So I don't take part in that discourse, and I will be taking less and less part in all of that, because I would rather make these longer form, thoughtful, intellectual, sort of academically tinged pieces where I have actually more than like 240 characters to explain my positions. To this Twitter box where you can't communicate complex thinking. It's very hard to communicate complex thinking on Twitter, clearly. And there are a lot of people on there who are not using it to engage with ideas on a good faith basis. They're using it to call out the people that their mind brands as bad. And I'm not interested in that at all. I have zero interest in that mode of politics, quote unquote politics. Because at the end of the day, that's not a political mode of action. It's a cultural one. And it's a cultural one that doesn't have a lot of political weight or political effects behind it, or sprouting from it. It's a very useless mode of action if you want to actually politically change the world. So there we go. I actually kind of hope that, like, some of the people who have been attacking me over this post will have, like, listened to this and come to more of an understanding about what I think and what I don't think and what I said and what I didn't say. Because the truth is, I have a broader perspective than all of the people who attacked me. I've put more thought into this, clearly, than any of these people who just have these simplistic fucking opinions about their brain chemistry. It's pretty obvious that I have a more developed perspective than them. And that's the thing, like, you are allowed to develop your own point of view on things. Your thoughts don't have to be legitimated by a fucking outside force that tells you that your thinking is okay. They literally don't. Everyone has thoughts. They're value neutral. Develop your own thinking. And really, according to me, what you should be doing is developing your own thinking outside of the ways that society encourages you to think. Engage with political theory. Engage with philosophy. Engage with alternative outsider discourse. And it's funny because, like, there are people in there who are literally telling me to read disability theory when my position is backed up by, like, the theoretical groundwork for my position is like Deleuze and Guattari and Foucault and like originators of cultural theory as we know it, like highly influential theorists about society. And when me and this other person who was backing me up, who followed me, were engaging with these people, and asking them who should I read, what disability theory should I engage with, they couldn't answer us. They literally had zero recommendations to give. And someone even said Foucault is not relevant. Are you kidding me? Foucault's magnum opus was literally Madness and Civilization. It's literally about mental illness. You can't say Foucault is irrelevant to the issue of mental health. That's insane. Like, that's illiterate. Like, it's just kind of like hilariously like ignorant to say that Foucault is irrelevant to the issue of mental health. It's just it's wild. But yeah, I think that there's a huge deficit, there's a huge lack of understanding in our culture today, in the mainstream insider discourses, as far as the sociocultural realm, the realm of context, the realm that the phenomenological realm, the realm that we actually exist in, the realm that humans experience reality in, not just the purely physical, which we are then encouraged to idealistically draw conclusions from, as if we are like purely determined by physical things like brain structures, and like with an inability to understand the fact that even your brain structure is influenced by society. Because again, you could reduce literally the feeling of happiness to just a brain chemical, but that doesn't mean that the iced coffee that you got isn't the thing that made you happy. That's still the way human beings interpret the fucking world. So you can interpret your depression as a chemical imbalance, but that doesn't mean that your life, which is lacking in all of these things, isn't the thing that's making you depressed. It just means that your brain chemistry is a product of the societal context that you find yourself experiencing. Because you put yourself in a different circumstance and you might not feel depressed anymore. Like, I don't conceptualize disorders or quote unquote disabilities and quote unquote disorders to be things that people have, things that people possess within them. I don't think that's how it is. I conceptualize them to be modes of experience. They're things that people experience rather than things that people have. They're things that people go through and suffer with instead of things that people have as innate characteristics. And I'm just going to say one more thing about this topic. One more thing. It's literally just a testament to how dismal and tragic our societal conditions are that there were so many people responding to my post telling me how liberated they felt, how much better it made them feel when a doctor told them, this is what's wrong with you and here are your meds. That just goes to show, that's just an indication that if being put into a category of disorder and being essentialized in this idealistic fashion to be inherently flawed in some way, and then given a pill to rectify yourself so that you continue functioning as the cog in the world machine that you are, is liberating to you, that just goes to show how far we are as a society from liberty. Because that's literally just another cage. That's literally just another artificially drawn cage. But there were literally people who, that was their response to what I was saying. Their response was literally like, I had no idea what it was, and then I finally got diagnosed, and it was like, wow, I finally have a name for the thing. It's like, yeah, okay, naming things is useful. There's always a convenience advantage to any category. That's part of their utility. But what comes with the convenience is an oversimplification as well. Because all these categories, all these territorializations are artificially drawn. They're not fixed. They're not static. Even if they represent a physical or emotional reality, that's still different. Like the experience, the symptom of having a disorder is different from the disorder. That's also a crucial part to understand my position. These are layers, and they're not the same thing. The diagnosis is not the same thing as the experience. And people's reaction to what I was saying is literally just evidence of the essentialism inherent in the worldview that they've inherited from mainstream mental health discourses that, no, actually, the diagnosis and the experience are the same thing. We've explained the world to you. It's like, no, you drew out an artificial territory by observing patterns of common behavioral symptoms in people. You didn't fucking figure it all out. Like you just did a thing. You just constructed a structure. It's not. You didn't discover it. You just explained it in a way. And I think there are better ways of explaining them. And I think it's more complicated than the simplistic explanations of diagnostic territorializations. It's more complex than that. But I am acutely aware of the fact that when I speak, a lot of the time people hear things that I didn't actually say. And I'm aware of the fact that I'm not exactly the most easily digestible speaker. I use a lot of highly articulated, high level vocabulary. It's easy to misinterpret me, but it's at the same time, this is the mode of communication that I'm accustomed to. It's easy for me to talk about complex things in these very specific terms. And I have the best of intentions. You've probably heard that a lot, but my intention, I promise you, is not to be some kind of socially conservative Strasserist who thinks that we should, like, genocide the mentally ill in order to achieve communism, because that was another thing that I was accused of. Someone literally told me that if you think that ADHD won't exist under communism, you believe in eugenics. The irony in that statement is that modern psychiatry was literally founded upon the basis of eugenics. First of all. And secondly, no, that's not my position. I'm sorry. I don't believe that we should do eugenics. I actually believe basically the opposite of that, and we should eliminate and stop categorizing people as disordered. And instead, we should fix the problems in our society together that create these internal problems. So I hope I've elaborated to a satisfactory degree my position on the issue of mental health and ADHD, and I hope I've absolved myself of my accused ableism, because I literally don't hold bigoted beliefs or hatred or animosity towards people who have ADHD or autism or etc. Like, I literally don't. I like those people. I might have some form of that myself. It's just not diagnosed yet. But I do experience symptoms, even like autistically. Like, I have autistic traits. I'm very intellectually obsessive. I get hyper fixated on things all the time. I don't have a very good attention span. What do you want me to tell you? Like, I am in just as much of a mental, emotional mess as the average person or more even, under this society. So you might want to turn your lens and your scopes towards the society instead of attacking me because you heard what your asshole granddad or whatever when you were a kid told you about your condition, in me saying that the identity that you've internalized as inherently disordered is fake. I'm sorry. That's not what I didn't say that your experience isn't real. I said that there are better ways. I basically was saying that there are better ways of interpreting those experiences and physical realities. And that you don't have to listen to society tell you who you are. You can define yourself. You don't have to accept the diagnosis. You honestly don't. But yeah, that's kind of like secondary to the whole point, I guess. I really sincerely hope that I've made my point now. Because I hold zero animosity for these people. Everyone I've ever known, this isn't like a I have black friends argument. It's literally just adding perspective to you people. Everyone I've ever known has been like mentally like At least depressed. Everyone I've ever been friends with has at least been depressed. You know what I mean? And I mean like for real, like suicidal ideation levels of like, and self-harm, like real shit. So I don't hold animosity towards people who are considered disordered or disabled. In fact, when people tell me when I meet them, I have so and so, I don't I try my hardest, and I honestly don't have to try to not judge them for that, because I don't care. Because at the end of the day, what I hear when people tell me that is, oh, you got diagnosed into these fake territories. Okay. I would rather get to know you on an individual, genuine human level than judge you based on your territories that you've been forced into. You know, like, I don't think like your average subject. I've literally broken free from that ideology. I don't think like them. So you might find, if you actually engage with me on a genuine good faith basis, that you might not even disagree with me in reality. You were just having a trauma reaction. But yeah, that's the episode, and if there's any more clarification necessary, you can literally just let me know that, and I'll make another video about it. There's probably going to be some kind of level of content about that entire concept, because I'm literally still reading Anti-Oedipus, and I just bought Madness and Civilization by Foucault, and it just came in today. So I'm probably going to make a video literally about this subject, like a full-form video essay style video, not just an installment of the podcast. So stay tuned for that, and I hope that this was helpful in discerning what I actually believe about this issue and clarifying the fact that I'm not a bigot, and especially not towards disabled people. I've literally made an effort and a point recently in my life, out of compassion for people I know, to stop using words like the R slur. And yet people were still calling me that as they were calling me ableist. But yeah. Goodbye, everyone. And we will see you next week for hopefully an episode with a guest. Hopefully.